Hello and welcome to Podcast Demastered. I'm your host Ethan Meyer, and I'm joined, as always, by my two very good friends, Wade and Chelsea. And welcome to episode 47 of the podcast. Today on our show, we're going to do a news roundup episode where we're kind of just going to be hitting all the a lot of the major storylines that have happened since January, and then some other stuff that kind of interests us in the entertainment space. Anything from like film or games or TV or anime or whatever. So it's going to be kind of a mixed bag of news stories today. So just kind of, with that being said, I think we should probably just hop into it because we actually have a lot of stuff that has happened since January. So we're just, we're almost to the end of the month of April here, and yeah, we have messy stories, we have exciting stories, we have all kinds of stuff. So I say we start with the messiest, and
indeed the messiest,
and talk about the Microsoft Activision Blizzard potential acquisition, because I don't know if we've covered this since our last news roundup that was in December, but Microsoft has acquired Activision Blizzard, or put money on the table to acquire Activision Blizzard for, I can't remember the exact figure, but I think it was like almost like $80 billion, which just sounds like made up money. But not only is that like the largest acquisition in gaming, it's also one of the largest acquisitions in U.S. history. So it's got a lot of attention in the media. It's got a lot of attention in the government, the Federal Trade Commission, senators, basically anyone out there is looking at this merger. And Activision Blizzard already had a slew of issues within the company, from harassment cases and the leadership, the board of directors being corrupt, and all kinds of issues even before Microsoft kind of got in there. The whole Bobby Kotick storyline and all that stuff, from most of that was last year, and it's kind of taken a back seat now. So where we're at today with this potential acquisition is, a few months ago, a couple senators, most notably Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, kind of sent a letter to the FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, and basically said, hey, this needs to be investigated. We don't think this should go through because the employees at Activision Blizzard are trying to unionize, and it's already a huge company, and then if a bigger company comes in and gobbles them up, those efforts would be most likely squashed or in vain. So that got sent to the FTC, I want to say in February. And then a few weeks ago, this investment group, SOC, which I can't remember now what that actually is an acronym for. Anyways, they are a group of shareholders that have stock in Activision Blizzard. They don't have a controlling interest in the company. I want to say what I saw was like less than like 5% for these shareholders, but they put out a letter to all their shareholders saying to vote against the merger for a variety of reasons. One, the big one, is that they kind of see the buyout as a lowball price, because Microsoft is offering like $90-something a share, and because that's market price now, because that company has been kind of a shit show for almost 2 years now. They are saying that the market price before the harassment cases and all the legal stuff came out, those share prices were like 100 plus each. So they're saying that Microsoft is essentially lowballing and trying to basically buy at the lowest point of the company, which, yes, they if that's what your market value is currently, that's kind of what your market value is. You can't say, hey, well, 3 years ago we were worth $150 a share. That's what you should be paying. Be like, well, sorry, that was 3 years ago. This is where you're at now. This is what we're paying. They also said that they don't believe that Microsoft would be able to fix the leadership issue, the culture issue. They also don't think that they would be able to address the employees trying to, their unionization efforts. They really just don't like the idea of a larger corporate entity kind of getting in there and either meddling or just not doing anything at all. They also are worried that it would cause a shift in competitive marketplace, where it would make Microsoft, with this merger with Activision Blizzard, which is already a very large company, just based off the price tag, it would make them, sort of monopolistic in the space. So with all those issues, I kind of want to open it up to you guys. Do you guys agree or disagree? Let's start with Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders' issues about Microsoft buying in and basically like crumbling whatever unionization efforts. Do you think Microsoft would handle that with grace? Do you think they would ignore it? Do you think how do you guys agree with the senators in those concerns, or do you think that it's just like a nothing story?
I think it's fair to like let the employees of the company like figure themselves out before such a massive takeover,
Mm-hmm.
because I could see like they're out there fighting for, equality and everything else like within their own workspace. Um, but then like once the buyout happens, they're not fighting the same battle anymore. They're not talking to the same people anymore. So it's kind of like it could be really like shell shocking, I suppose. To like change a fight right there in the middle like that. I
Yeah,
could see why that would be an issue, I suppose.
yeah. Chelsea, what about you?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's something like, I think the employees are obviously a very big and important part of the company, and that should be something that should be considered first. And especially too, like, there's been a lot of stuff going on with this company, and kind of like maybe focusing on fixing what's going on first before moving on to something bigger and merging on. Because I'm not sure how easily those things will be fixed once it's merged.
Yeah, it's definitely not an easy, because it's a fight that the employees have been having for better part of a year already, and there's been
Mm-hmm.
very slow change. Most of the people on the board are still there. Um, they're doing these little micro promotions or hirings, like they just hired a new like diversity officer to kind of help create a new culture, which sure, that sounds great on paper, but that also kind of sounds to me like just like some PR shit. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, it's something that would still take time.
yeah, yeah. For me, like any sort of fix from the bottom up is always gonna be this like long, drug out battle. And this, ever since this stuff's been happening, this company has been not shipping games, not making money. Whatever they are shipping is tanking because employee morale is low, people are leaving, this, that, and the other. So that's part of the reason why their stock price is so bad. It's the only thing I saw from Microsoft's point of view is that they did say, if this goes through, we would acknowledge whatever union efforts as long as Activision Blizzard acknowledged them. Basically saying like, we don't really want to get involved with this, but if you guys fix it, we'll we'll allow it. Basically, which is, I think they kind of have to say that at this stage, because since nothing's final, they can't really start going out there in the press and saying this is what we're going to do, because I don't think legally they can even make those sort of claims if they don't actually own the company yet. So yeah, I personally don't think that the grassroots stuff is going to fix it in a timely fashion that would actually make Activision Blizzard what it was. You know what I mean? I think it might take some external involvement to get in there and maybe help clean house a little bit. And that could be Microsoft. It could be, let's say this doesn't go through, and that's a possibility. If someone else wanted to throw down on the table, I don't think it's proven that as it's going as is, there hasn't been any like very little trickle down, positive, or trickle up, I guess, positive change. So I think maybe like a bigger splash, might be good. It's one of those things where it's like, how much worse can it get, kind of thing. So, what about what are your guys' takes on the investment group basically saying, hey, if you own shares, please vote this down because, of the share price? And I think that's more just them wanting more money. But what do you guys think of
money? Yeah.
It's always about money.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about their claims that it would the competitive marketplace shift? Do you guys actually think if Microsoft owned Activision Blizzard, it would make them any more? Do you think they would make them a bigger player in the space? Because right now, in sales and hardware and software, there's still 3 compared to Nintendo and Sony.
I mean, I'm sure it'll affect them to some degree, but I don't think it'll be some huge game changer. Like, everybody's going to be spinning on their heads now because Microsoft has everything. I don't think it's going to be like some big whirlwind,
Yeah. Chelsea, what about you?
I mean, but it could do them some good to have Microsoft helping them out and be like, oh, people are interested in our games again. Helps out the company. It's just, but yeah, no, they're just worried about simply money and just in the immediate moment.
Yeah. Yeah, I read through that entire investment group's letter that it sent out, which, God, it was boring. It was like 6 pages.
Commitment there.
At the end of it, I mean, for the most part, it just sounded like that they were a little sour that, hey, this, we own shares in a company that's tanking, and now another company wants to buy at bottom dollar, and we're not making as much money as if, let's say, they tried to buy it 2 years ago when we were, still making that moolah. So it kind of just sounds to me that it's like, hey, vote this down because potentially we can make more if we wait 5 years. So I don't think they give a shit about the employee cause. I think it's more just like, let's try and get as much cheddar as we can.
Oh, for sure.
So
yeah,
for sure.
So yeah, even when the acquisition was announced, Microsoft said that they hope to have this resolved by July of 2023. So it's not like this is going away anytime soon. And with all the eyes on this case, compared to other smaller acquisitions that have happened, with when Microsoft bought Bethesda and ZeniMax, no one gave a shit. Sony buying whatever small stuff there, small potatoes, no one gives a shit. But this is big even for just corporation's sake, so it's going to have a lot of eyes on it, a lot of scrutiny. So yeah, this is going to be with us for a while, so I'm kind of curious to see how this all shakes out. Personally, I don't think I really care either way. If Microsoft ends up closing and owns Activision Blizzard, because at the end of the day, that company's still going to be around in some form or fashion, and those games are still going to come out in some form or fashion, and it's either going to be under Microsoft's banner or their own. So it's whatever, you know what I mean? They already said that most of the heavy hitters are not going to be exclusive anyways. So at the end of the day, from a gamer standpoint, I don't even think it really matters that much. You know what I mean? If you own Game Pass, it's going to be cool because hey, here's 100 other games that just are going to drop overnight, you know, and that's awesome. But you know, I just it's more for me. I'm more interested to see what Activision Blizzard looks like in 2 to 5 years. You know,
yeah,
from a culture
sure.
change.
Yeah.
Because they do have a lot of really cool IP that's kind of being squandered because it's just poor leadership and the employees are at this like fuck it stage that like they just, you know what I mean, like even their cash cows like World of Warcraft and Call of Duty are like have been tanking recently from bad reviews and bad sales, so something needs to change. So
Yeah.
Moving on, I say we go ahead and talk about, since we just got done talking about Microsoft Xbox, let's go ahead and just talk about Sony here.
Yeah.
They finally announced their PlayStation Plus kind of sort of rebrand. You know, it was rumored for a while under the codename Spartacus, where it kind of leaked that Sony was going to take their PlayStation Plus and their PlayStation Now, which was their streaming platform, and kind of merge them into one and create this new, you know, super service. The the media dubbed it the Game Pass killer, which is stupid for them to do so. But anyways, they came out and they said it's a 3-tier system. The base tier is essentially just PlayStation Plus, as it's always been. Same price, same, you know, you get your cloud saves, you get your monthly games, and you get access to you know, online services for online play. You know, nothing really changes there. And then the second tier adds the PlayStation Now, where it's a streaming catalog of PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 titles. Streaming, or I think that tier is like most of those games are you can download and play, which is how Game Pass does it. And so that's the second tier. I can't remember what it's called. Is it like Plus Essential?
It's
Plus
extra.
PlayStation Plus Extra, whatever. And then the third tier is
Extra.
Is it Essential? Is the third one Essential or Deluxe or?
The first one's essential, and then
Okay,
the third one is premium.
Okay, premium, yeah. So the third tier, premium, that gets you, you know, the streaming catalog of PS4 and PS5 games, but then it also adds backwards compatibility games from PlayStation 1, 2, and the PSP, and then it has some PS3 that are going to be, the PS3 games are streaming only. No announcement on what any of the backwards compatibility games are. There was just kind of like some loose language about like up to an X amount. I think they, you know, a couple hundred games or whatever for like the PS4, PS5 catalog, and then it just kind of listed off we're going to have backwards compatibility for older systems. So before we get into what it doesn't have, what are your guys' thoughts on the announcement and the tier system, just like as it is first glance? You know, what do you guys think of it?
Go ahead, Chelsea. Go ahead.
Okay. I mean, I'm kind of okay with it. I was not expecting anything to be a complete game changer. One of the things I was really hoping for to see in one of those tiers was, you know, some of that like kind of backwards compatibility, being able to play some of those older games, because, you know, I don't have all the old systems anymore, and there's definitely some hidden gems on there, and I would love to see those, like, you know, be able to play those now. And so I do appreciate those tiers. I'm also fine that they didn't completely change like what they have now for it. I'm a little bummed because these other tiers are a little more expensive, and I kind of wish like the essential tier, the basic one, was almost a little bit cheaper to make it a little more of an incentive, like, oh, you're actually saving money after all this time, but if you spend a little more, then you can get the more advanced ones. But it's more like, oh, you're spending a lot more money to do that.
Yeah, with the pricing was surprising and also kind of like a head spin for me when I first saw it, because you look at those monthly rates and you're like, wow, this is like the Essential is, the same as, like it has, it's always been. But then you start looking at the monthly rates for the other ones and you're like, wow, this is, competitively speaking, like it's not that great of a deal. But then Sony was like, oh, well, if you just buy like a year's worth, it's almost like half the price, if you just pay for like a full year. It's like, give us $100 some odd dollars for the premium for just like a year-long subscription, or you can give us $200 something by the end of the year if you pay monthly. So that was actually kind of surprising to me that they did it that way. It's almost, they kind of almost made the monthly rates shitty just to incentivize people to buy for a year, which is, from a marketing standpoint, that's pretty smart. But yeah, I can't see anyone doing the monthly rate unless it's just one of those, unless it's one of those things where it's like, let's say they put like a couple cool games on the for in the PlayStation Now, and it's like, okay, cool, I'm gonna buy for a month, play these games, and then and then drop it for the rest of the year or whatever. But for my money, like, if I was gonna do this, I think I would just do like a year rate,
Yeah, I just calculate that when you said it was a lot cheaper for the year rate, and I was like, okay, for the premium, it ends up being like $9.99 a month.
Yeah.
So that's actually a really good deal.
Yeah.
I mean, but Xbox, the premium gold Game Pass is about the same.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
The monthly rate's about the same.
Yeah, Game Pass, if you do Game Pass Ultimate, which is their top tier, it's $15 a month, which is like $220 or some shit or whatever a year. That gets you access to a lot of stuff, and in my opinion, way more than what the Sony premium gets you. So that's why I was like, I just don't think those monthly rates are competitive, like, at all.
Well, the rate is competitive, but you're talking about the content, which is not the same thing as the rate. And we don't know what we're really getting though with the premium yet, so it's hard. Well,
let's go ahead and talk about what we're not getting with Sony. You're not getting day one launches for first party games, and that's kind of the big stickler. That's like in terms of if we wanted to compare these services, which I don't think they should be compared because they're two different things in my book. Sony not doing day one launches is the biggest like difference from what Game Pass is, because Game Pass's biggest selling point is that if it's first party, you're getting it day one on the service.
Indeed.
Sony is not doing that. Jim Ryan, once they came out with it, he had this big announcement. He was talking about how, we're not going to see that in the near future. He didn't say that they were never going to do it. He basically just said, we're not doing it right now. He said things can change down the road, so we'll see how long that road is.
Yeah, but they don't really have anything like coming up either, though, like first party wise,
Yeah.
So it could be like, well, nobody's made a decision, so I can't say yes, we're going to.
Yeah.
So it's probably safer if I say no, and then we backtrack later and be like, oh, surprise, God of War's coming, something like that.
Yeah, it could be a thing where it's like 2 or 3 years down the road, and it's like, hey, we're doing day one launches, and we got like 6 games coming out this year. They're all going to be on the service, So he didn't close the door. It's just, it's ajar. It's slightly ajar at this point.
But he's still being a prat like he is, though. So
yeah. He basically came out and said the reason why they don't want to do day one launches is because it would affect their development cycle. And it would, he basically said that it would cause the scope of their titles and the funding to be less, which would kind of degrade the quality of their premium first party games, which, if you don't know, a lot of Sony's first party games cost a stupid amount of money. $200-400 million to develop. And if you also don't know, Sony doesn't have deep pockets like Microsoft does to kind of burn through capital, taking a loss on that kind of stuff. So that makes sense to me. I don't like it as a gamer, but as someone who understands like financing, it totally makes sense to me that Sony is not going to make the same kind of moves that a Microsoft can do. And honestly, I don't necessarily think they have to either.
No, I mean, Sony
being a market leader for as long as they have, and we're in a new generation, so install bases are still underwhelming, but the PS4 install base is still like stupid large. It's it's massive, and they're still releasing titles on PS4, even though they said before the generation started that there will not be any. If it's a PS5 game, you're not going to play it on PS4. Well, they've already backtracked on that. So
well, they had to. Nobody had PS5s. So.
Yeah, and I do think that COVID is a huge part of that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of like the big thing. There is no day one launches. That was a lot. People were really hoping that they would do that, but I think it was kind of a fool's hope. I never thought that they would be able to pull that off. So it didn't really bother me. It was more just kind of like reaffirming something I already kind of assumed when that was announced. The other thing is that the PS3 library, they haven't talked about the extent of how deep these backwards compatibility libraries are, but they did say that the PS3 library would be streaming only, and that's mostly because how the PS3 was manufactured and how those games were developed. They can't really understand or figure out how to make those backwards compatible or forwards compatible, I guess. So they are streaming only. I am curious to see how that goes. I don't know what platform they use on PlayStation Now right for their streaming right now. I want to say it's like Gaikai or some shit like that. But anyways, I don't know what the quality is going to be like with the streaming stuff. That's kind of just like a wait and see. For me personally, at the end of the day, I don't. It's not like it's not a nail in the coffin. It doesn't really bother me. I don't really plan on doing I'm not planning on doing the top tier and playing backwards compatible, backwards games for Sony, anyways. So. But I can see how that could be an issue for some people in certain markets that have, if they want to play a bunch of PS3 games, they have to stream them only. Like that becomes an infrastructure issue and data caps and internet availability. And this service also, for as large as Sony is, they also don't have the that infrastructure in as many international territories as they probably should. So that also is kind of weird, but who's to say what this thing looks like in a couple years? When Game Pass launched, everyone thought it was fucking crazy and dumb, and it seems to be doing pretty all right. So
yeah, I mean, it did go through a big renaissance, and now we are where it's at. So
yeah, so we'll see with Sony. I'm not overly concerned at all with it. I don't plan on getting it at all. I don't have Plus as it is. I don't even really use my PS4, and I don't have a PS5. And the way it's looking, I probably won't for a while. So this, for me personally, this service is just like, yeah, cool. This is like a wait and see. I'll check in on in 2 years and see where you're at. So, are you guys planning on? Are you guys going to be day one adopters? Are you do you already have a tier that you're jumping into, or you guys both gonna do the premium, or what are you guys doing? Not all at once.
I guess I'll go first. Okay. I think for now I'll stick with the essential, since I just have Plus already and already have that for a while. But I will be very curious to see once they do come up with an actual list of all these games that are going to be on the services. And I probably will eventually, in the future, get the premium, because it ends up, if you like the whole year, it ends up being a really good deal. But as of right now, I'm not really focused on playing it immediately because I have a huge backlog. So I want to focus on that first before I get back and playing some old school games.
Yeah, and if you already have a backlog of stuff you own, it's the worst when you get a streaming service and opens up and then you just have a backlog of hundreds. Because that's where I'm at with Game Pass, and it's awesome, but it also sucks.
No, I can't do that to myself.
It's pretty overwhelming. So yeah. Wade, what about you?
I'm waiting. I'm like Chelsea. I'm waiting to see what the premium list looks like.
Yeah.
You know, because like I don't with the day one stuff. I don't really care if they ever do day one stuff, because I don't tend to play a lot of the first party Sony stuff anyway. And because that stuff will eventually come to the service eventually, like whatever. But I'm more interested in like the old stuff.
Yeah.
And to play some of that old stuff legally, it is quite expensive right now. My goodness. So if they're like, oh, well, here's like most of the PSP catalog for $15 a month or whatever. Okay. Here's your PS1 and PS2s, which have tremendously huge libraries. Okay, like let's do that. That's fine. That's not an issue with me.
Yeah, I am curious to see what those libraries look like for those older generation games, because anytime you start doing stuff like that, you have to worry about like licensing stuff that is not first party, and that can always be tricky. so yeah, I'm curious to see what those catalogs look like too. I'm also curious if they just do like a huge dump, or if they're gonna do like the Nintendo Switch style, where it's just kind of like, hey, here's like 8 more games this month, and here's 10 more. You know what I mean? Like if they kind of do it that route.
It's kind of like build everything up.
Yeah. So, it's exciting to see how this all plays out. Let's go ahead and move on. We'll stay with Sony here. So a couple years ago, they invested a pretty large amount into Epic Games, and just like a month ago, they did it again. It was like $1 billion investment into Epic. Epic basically stated that they were raising funds to help produce further development on what they consider the metaverse, and to create new digital experiences. And I guess that caught Sony's eye, and they doubled down and bought in. Interestingly enough, another huge investor was also Lego. So,
is everybody going to be able to become a master builder now?
Yeah.
In the metaverse?
It's interesting that it's kind of interesting what Sony's been doing recently. If you look at some of their acquisitions and you look at some of the language around why, they've been buying some of these smaller studios. They've been buying studios that are heavily focused and kind of have cut their teeth on like PC development, PC porting. I really think Sony is trying to boost their PC presence. I mean, they've already been doing a lot of re-releases of PS4 games, first party, and to put them on PC. When they got Bungie, they basically said, hey, they're still going to be independent. We kind of just want their prowess on live service games. Jim Ryan kind of basically said, like, I think the future is in live service games and not in streaming or, this, that, or the other. So I'm kind of curious to see where Sony's at in a few years, because all those words sound awful to me. I don't like really any of that shit. And the fact that Sony is doubling down and investing heavily in that sort of rhetoric is not at all the direction I want them to take. I don't want Sony games to be live service. I don't want that to be a huge emphasis. I don't want them to have this, everyone has to have a metaverse, plan once anyone figures out what that actually is. Because I don't think anyone knows what it is, but everyone's throwing money around like they do. So, So what are your guys' takes on the on Sony kind of doubling down on these endeavors?
I just want everybody to stay in their lane so I can play video games that aren't $100 a piece. That's for me. That's it. It's like, can we just not? Can we just stick to doing the things that we love and stop trying to get the quick penny on the new thing? Like the same with NFTs. Let's not make a 10-year plan to include NFTs in every single video game from now on because some idiot online said that this was a worthwhile thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I just, for one, Sony and their first party catalog and the way that they develop their games and the experiences that they try and curate are not conducive to live service. Like, at all. I don't see a Last of Us Part 3 being a live service game. You know what I mean? Like,
I don't want to think about that, no.
But the fact that a lot of the studios that they have are supposedly working on a lot more multiplayer-focused games. Like, even Naughty Dog is working on some big multiplayer project. That stuff bothers me because I think Sony has some of the best talent in development in-house. Their first-party studios are at the top of their game. Stuff like Insomniac and Naughty Dog and Sony Santa Monica. And the fact that I don't want them to be relegated to trying to chase trends. You know what I mean? I don't want these corporate initiatives trickling down to these studios and being like, hey, I know you're working on this really cool narrative adventure, but what if this is just like the new generation loot box. You know what I mean? That's what it rings to me. Like, last generation, every studio had to figure out a way to incorporate microtransactions and loot boxes and all this other stupid shit. These live service games and NFTs and the idea that we want this game to be something that you play for years on end instead of just these one-off experiences. That's not why I like Sony. I don't want that for that company at all. Leave that shit to the third party, people, your Ubisofts and whatnot. If they want to make that nonsense, fine. But I just don't want Sony to chase these trends that, in my opinion, are not working. Outside Destiny, what's another live service game that's a success? Anthem almost ruined a whole studio. And then fucking Marvel's Avengers is just struggling to be relevant. Where even Square Enix basically came out and were like, hey, we probably shouldn't have hired Crystal Dynamics to make a live service game since they've never done it before.
I mean, you could probably include all the battle royale games and stuff like that in the live servicey kind of stuff. Because they're ongoing.
Yeah, and besides Fortnite, the others Warzone has a plethora of issues with cheating because it's cross-play. And they're it's Activision Blizzard, so they have just development issues across the map. Is PUBG even a thing anymore? I don't hear anyone talk about it ever.
I don't really.
No, not really.
And Fortnite is it's half game, half the new Second Life. You know what I mean? This shit has concerts in it. They did these weird galleries where you just walk around, digital museums and shit. They do all kinds of just weird events and stuff, which fine, it's cool, it works for that game. But I don't think you can take that and just rip it from Fortnite and drop it in a fucking Sony game. You know what I mean? That just it just doesn't make sense to me. So yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. I kind of have mixed feelings on it because I definitely love Sony, and I like their games for their, single player experience, their really rich storytelling, wonderful worlds and everything. But I think if some of those studios are actually wanting to explore something different, but at least not losing like the core of their studio, like actually bringing up Fortnite is actually a pretty interesting example from how it just like what it originally started out as and what it's become. Not that everybody should copy, like you said, the exact formula of what Fortnite's doing, but that they put their own spin on it. And so I think some of these studios, like we've said, are very talented, and what they bring, if they could bring something to a live service game, I'd be willing to give it a try, but as long as they don't give up what they've already done and continue doing what they've been doing.
Yeah, Fortnite is probably the only successful example of someone who chased a trend and then excelled at building upon it, because they literally were just like this, like a wave-based survival game, and then PUBG blew up, and they're like, hey, we should probably copy that. And they did, and then they already had their gaming elements of building, and they're just like, hey, you guys like battle royales? Let's make a battle royale. And then they've kind of taken on that crown, and they're kind of the battle royale, and so many people tried chasing that trend, and none of them are around anymore. And if they are around, they're on the verge of relevance, So that's kind of the problem I have with like any of these like major companies that see these trends, because a lot of these people who are making decisions are not are not gamers, and not always on the not only on the precipice of what we actually like, what the community is actually looking for in an experience. So they're like, oh hey, people like Fortnite, let's try and do that. And it's just like, no, we want you to keep doing the shit you're doing, and we want them to keep doing the shit they're doing, and just, like Wade was saying earlier, everybody just stay in their lane and do what they're good at. And
like Nintendo.
I don't
like
want these
Nintendo.
I don't want these studios to like water down their talent pools to do something that they're not built for, So I don't know. Sticking with the studio talk, are you guys familiar with the studio The Initiative?
Nope.
Okay.
No.
So a couple years ago, when Microsoft first announced that they were building up all these, buying all these, studios in their like main acquisition, they bought Ninja Theory and Double Fine and this, that, and the other. The Initiative was a studio that they built from the ground up in Santa Monica, and it was going to be their like AAA house, and it got all this. They started hiring talent from, Naughty Dog and Sony Santa Monica, and all these other like prestigious studios came to The Initiative. And then some time went by, and they announced that The Initiative was developing a Perfect Dark remake, reimagining, whatever. So recently, The Initiative, or Microsoft came out and said, hey, Crystal Dynamics is coming in to co-develop, to kind of help oversee the development on Perfect Dark. And the core members of the studio initially from The Initiative did not like the idea of another studio coming in and basically saying, hey, this is what you guys need to do, this is how you need to do it. So most of them left. Even the co-head of the studio has left. And there's a huge exodus of employees leaving that company just because another company came in. I mean, if you imagine you're sitting there doing this project that you've been working on for 2-3 years, and all of a sudden this other studio is brought in because they know better than you, and they're telling you how to do all these things differently, and all the work you worked on is being scrapped. And so I understand it, I get it. But now that studio is like in turmoil. That game's up in the air. Like, no one knows what the fuck's going on over there. Crystal Dynamics is basically just like developing Perfect Dark now, like solely because no one even knows what The Initiative is anymore. So it's not a great first showing for a brand new studio for Microsoft. In that same kind of light, two other studios, or I guess one studio that Microsoft acquired, Undead Labs, which makes State of Decay, they've been coming out recently with all these harassment issues and inappropriate behavior, and people have been complaining. Some people have left. Production of State of Decay 3 has been not delayed, but slowed and halted because of creative differences and this, that, and the other. So there's issues going on there. The indie studio, Phenomena, which is not owned by Microsoft, it's just a indie studio. There were claims coming out about that, that the head, Robin Heineke, that she was making inappropriate comments to her employees, and stuff about anything from talking about their sex life and all this other shit. So last I heard, that studio is probably gonna shut down. They haven't shipped anything in a while, and it's just not making money. And now that the studio head is under all this scrutiny and fire, it's probably just gonna close unless someone steps in. High Moon Studios, which makes Ori and the Blind Forest and Ori Will of the Wisps. There's been people coming out complaining about them and the heads of the studio being misogynistic and harassing employees and this, that, and the other. So I guess what I'm saying is Activision Blizzard's not the only studio out there with problems. This is a widespread issue that is, I think what with what Blizzard has been going through and how so many people are coming out and speaking out against it, I think is empowering more employees across these other studios to be hey, I'm going to stand up and let the world know that the people this studio's got some shit going on, that they need to know about. I think it's just
alone.
Yeah, I think this is going to continue because this industry has had these issues almost for its entire existence. And I think you're just going to keep seeing more and more studios. I mean, there's shit with Quantic Dream. There's stuff with Ubisoft. In fact, I just saw today that it's rumored that Ubisoft is looking for a buyer. So because there's just lack of leadership and direction, and no one really knows what the fuck's going on anymore. So yeah, just a lot of crazy stuff it's not shocking, but it's just a continued disappointment. It's just man, I really wish we can clean this shit up. There needs to be some accountability. There needs to be an oversight committee. Now more than ever, this industry needs unionization to help with this shit. So yeah, it's just concerning. All right, let's do some positive. Let's jump into a positive story here. This is for you guys. So at the 20th anniversary event for Kingdom Hearts 4 was announced. It was also announced that it was going to be developed on Unreal Engine 5, which was also just kind of announced and shown off, I think a week prior. Mm-hmm. So not a whole lot is known. I'm kind of just pulling from the stories that I saw and from the press release from Square Enix that, they said, I can't remember the guy's name. You guys would probably know more than me, but he dropped the new saga. So I guess there's a potential that there's going to be more than 4, you're maybe a 4, 5, and 6, maybe another trilogy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was discussing the realistic setting and the potential of a hub world, and people were pulling stuff from the trailer, whatever nitpick things they can see, and there's potentials of a Star Wars world, and so since you guys are the Kingdom Hearts aficionados, I kind of want you guys to just kind of gush about this and kind of give me your guys' takes and what you guys think. Are you excited about it? Are you concerned? Are you just what's your wish list for this game? Where's your guys' heads at?
So I don't know. Like, I watched the trailer like 5 times. Um, it's just so like everything just looked so good, but also like really different at the same time because like this is not the Kingdom Hearts like look that we're used to. So it's just weird to see Sora like in a realistic setting because that's just not the art style, you know, that he is. And it's different because of where he's at, not because they're like not because they're like, oh, all the graphics have to get better, so he has to look different, which I guess, I mean, technically you could note that as a reason, but like his old design will come back eventually because he'll return, I suppose. So
Yeah, I kept seeing stuff on Twitter about how he has normal feet now, or whatever.
Sora's always been known for his big ass shoes.
Yeah.
But you
Feet,
see
yeah.
like you see Sora without shoes for the first time ever in the trailer. So I don't know if people are actually expecting his actual feet to like be giant if nobody else's in the games ever are either. So I think it's just weird to see him without big shoes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You talk about
No, I mean-
the look and everything. I thought it was interesting that the demo or whatever you want to call it, the showpiece, was actually built on Unreal Engine 4. So if they're going for like a more realistic setting and they're building it on 5, like that shit's just going to be amped up to 11 when you actually see the game. So
And like with the realism stuff, like it's really weird. I really don't know what's going to happen because this is the way that the game exists, like in the story. So essentially, at the end of Kingdom Hearts 3, Sora's dead. He's gone. He's
spoiler.
I think it'd be okay. I think
Now
it'd
I
be okay.
don't. Now I'm not
Too
gonna
late
play
now.
'em.
So yeah, to 3 he dies. You know, he basically just gives up his existence and he has to die. But he awakens in this place that is like the other side of reality. So like we've more or less been told that there's not going to be like Disney worlds because Sora exists on the other side of their reality. You know,
So-
it's like the land of fiction kind of.
Does Sora exist in the metaverse?
Maybe we're about to find out.
Yeah.
So people are theorizing like, oh, are we going to see like the more live actiony products of Disney like Star Wars and Marvel and all that stuff? I don't quite think so, but Kingdom Hearts fans are gonna freak out about anything that they possibly can. And
Yeah.
we have a long time to wait, so you know, just let them freak out, I guess.
Yeah, you're gonna have plenty of time to theorize for the next 4 to 7 years.
It's not going to take that long
at
to
least.
come out.
Chelsea, what's your
Well,
initial
that's-
reaction before we take a break here?
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it. I thought it looked really great. I liked, and I mean, I wasn't very surprised by it. Like, I was like, or, you know, and it's like, oh, cool. They're, you know, this at least point that they're teasing for this game, it has that more realistic style and everything. And I'm just like, I don't know why people are so stuck on the idea that it's going to be super realistic the whole game. Because we've seen Sora go to many different worlds and take on that style. But, you know, the game could have a more realistic style all around, and we may see fewer Disney properties coming into this game. Who knows? But it's Kingdom Hearts. I'm ready for it. I'm looking forward to any news about the game, and I'll be there day one for it. So
Yeah.
they can count on me to buy it.
It would actually be interesting to me if they did do a thing where like each different world he went to was like a vastly different like art style, and like maybe you go to one and it's like a 2D world or whatever. It's like 8-bit, you know, and then he goes to one and it's cartoony again. Then he's got like a super like photorealistic one. Like maybe instead of doing like different Disney worlds, they're doing like different like style and like animation, you know, worlds. I don't know. Maybe this new saga, it will be the one that pulls me in. We'll see.
Well, it's not going to get any less convoluted, so have fun.
Yeah, that's I'm fine with that.
That's for sure.
I play Metal Gear. I can handle nonsense like that. So, but yeah, I was glad to see a 4 announced, more for your guys' sake, because it's not my thing, but there's a huge fan base out there, and I know that people are gonna pick it apart for a while. So happy for you guys. I don't know what your fan base is called. Are you guys like what are Kingdom Heart fans? Hardies? Heart attacks?
There's no name. There's no name for it.
No,
all right, we'll workshop that. We'll workshop that. All right, I say we take a quick break, and then we will come back and do a couple more big storylines, and then we'll kind of just do like a rapid fire of some of the smaller stuff, and then call it. So stick around. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back, everybody. We're going to switch away from gaming news and kind of jump into the film scene here. We're going to start off with this Warner Brothers story that kind of came through a couple weeks ago. So Warner Brothers came out and said that they're sort of weighing their decision to greenlight any sequels within the Fantastic Beast Wizarding World series. If you don't know, it was projected to have 5 films, and they just released the 3rd one this past Friday, if I'm right. So this series has had a lot of criticism, not only for just the films itself, what they're doing with characters and storylines and all that shit, but the casting of having Johnny Depp in it, and then having J.K. Rowling as a writer and all her nonsense, and then now there's all this controversy with Ezra Miller, who apparently can't stay out of bar fights in Hawaii
with women. So he's kind of in hot water for like the 3rd time. That boy just needs a hug. Damn.
Yeah, that boy needs something. A boot in his ass and some.
Also, yes.
So, but anyways, they're kind of waiting. They're kind of taking a wait and see approach with this 3rd film. They brought in Steve Kloves to kind of help with the screenplay, because the first 2 films were exclusively written by J.K. So they brought in Steve Kloves to kind of help tidy up this screenplay. If you don't know, Steve Kloves did the screenplays for the original Harry Potter film franchise. So he's familiar with that world, I guess. So with that being said, Wade, you've actually seen the film. What is your take on it compared to the previous 2? Do you think this series has legs, or do you think that they kind of just need to, tuck their tail and just and leave it?
Man, so after this movie, there's supposed to be 2 more. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure what I can see there being 1 more. Because this movie wraps up a lot of the plot. Which I was rather surprised about, because it's the middle movie, but it wrapped up a lot of stuff. So either they were they're gonna have to jump into something, there's gonna have to introduce a lot of stuff in the next one to help prepare for the ending of the 5th one, or what. But with things on the line now, I really think it would be in their best interest to prepare for 1 final movie, and to call things a day after that.
Yeah. Did you notice any change? Did you notice any change in just the film itself from the previous 2? Because Crimes of Grindelwald was kind of a convoluted mess of a film. Did you notice any change in storytelling with it having an added writer to kind of help clean things up?
Well, okay, so I read in some reviews beforehand that this movie was just as convoluted and confusing plot wise. they'd go over here and then they'd go over here, and it didn't really seem why they were doing that. And then like the movie ended. I didn't get that at all. Like any of that. I mean, the movie starts like right where the second movie leaves off. And they go straight into the plot. There's not a lot of sitting around in this movie. It's thing to thing to thing to thing to thing. Now, they don't always tell you why exactly they're going to do this thing right now, but you find out by the time it's done. Yeah. But that also has plot relevance too. Which they say, like, before these things start happening, they're like, well, we have to do, like, we have plans, but like our plans have to have plans and secrets and stuff too, because what it is that Grindelwald, he gets a way to kind of like see glimpses of the future. So they have to kind of like be intuitive of that. Well, he can see what's coming, but we have to be very flexible in like how our plans actually get carried out, so that he doesn't know exactly what happens and stuff. But as I said, like, it kind of goes from place to place, and to me it was very smooth. Like, the movie ended and I was like, oh, okay, like that all seemed very natural, like progression wise.
Right. How was the recasting of because they got rid of Johnny Depp and they cast Mads Mikkelsen in his place? How did that play?
Okay, so he played Grindelwald really well.
Yeah.
I feel like, because in each of the 3 movies, we've had a different actor for each movie. But really, I think when we look back on this film series, I think that will be like a thing people will talk about. Because, like, the role that Grindelwald has played in each movie has kind of been different. Like, he's a different person. Like, in the first movie, he was literally not himself, you know. He was hiding as a different person. And in 2, he was like, oh, I'm kind of hidden, but kind of explaining my idealism behind all of these things. And in 3, he's like, no, I'm an active member of this world, and I'm going to gain some power kind of thing. And each of the actors have really added a lot to it, but this new one, he takes his approach as Grindelwald as far as, like, the villain, very, like, this political villain, very seriously. But they also go very, a lot more in-depth than anything ever has before, like, with the relationship between Grindelwald and Dumbledore. And Jude Law and the new actor, they really sell that. Like, it's really good.
Yeah. That's good to hear. I really like Mads and pretty much anything he does. I just think he's a brilliant actor.
Yeah. He was so good.
That's good.
Yeah. So that's good to hear. Yeah, I'm curious. I haven't seen box office receipts, but as of now, but I think early projections were saying that Sonic 2 was doing like way better than Fantastic Beasts. So I think there's just a lot more excitement for that film than this series. I think a lot of people are kind of just already, even fans of this series are already kind of tired of this series. So,
I don't think it's the series though. Well, I think it's everything surrounding the series.
Yeah,
it's just worn everybody out.
Yeah. So like if your anticipation's already middling from like the people who already like this stuff, I don't see a whole lot of casuals walking in and watching this movie over whatever else is out there. So I'm kind of curious. I want to know what Warner Brothers' actual threshold is, that you know, what their decision making threshold is. Be like, oh, does it have to reach, you know, this amount of box office returns before we greenlight something? Does it have, or is it something like, oh, well, we need like this amount of, you know, like, are they doing it by ratings? Are they doing it by money? You know, I'm kind of curious to see, you know, how they approach this. So it should be interesting.
I mean, like, if they don't finish it, if they can't push through and give them one more movie, It's gonna be a problem. Like the stuff that like this movie leaves off with, like as far as all the characters go, like that last like 45 minutes of the movie is just a lot of emotion.
No.
There's a lot of stuff happening with all the characters, and like while a lot of stuff, like a lot of like world plot stuff gets resolved, not all of the character stuff does.
Gotcha.
And we know, we know that Dumbledore and Grindelwald still have to fight. Like, Grindelwald still has to be stopped, kind of thing. And that's kind of like, at the end of this movie, that's like the thing at the end of this movie. So to stop at that point,
yeah,
would be awful.
Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't be the first time that, series are killed before they, can finish. It happens in film, happens in TV, happens in gaming. So it's definitely in the realm of possibility. I'm curious to see also what they do with Ezra Miller, because for my money, I think he should just be fucking replaced. If they're going to replace Johnny Depp, they might as well replace him too.
I can't respond without spoilers, so...
Well, if he's dead, then I guess it's fine. I just think that dude, like... And this kind of goes to, like, Warner Brother at large, like, even his, like, DC presence. Like, I think they just need to, like, cut that dude out of their, like, system. And, like, move away from him. Because he's, like, a fucking PR cancer. And until he gets his shit together, like, I don't think he needs to be running around as the Flash. You know what I mean? So...
And isn't that movie in post-production now?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's still slated to come out this year, I think. I do know that Warner Brothers announced a while back that a lot of their DC films release dates like shifted. I can't remember how much though. A lot of them got pushed the next year. I don't know if Flash was one of them. But yeah, it's done filming. I know that. Like most of them are done filming. I'm pretty sure Aquaman's been done filming, and Flash, and I think Shazam is done filming. So the Fury of the Gods or whatever, and I think Black Adam is done filming too. So
that one's been done filming. I think that's the next one that comes out, isn't it?
I don't know. Like I said, they shifted around a lot of their DC slate, and I can't remember what's coming out this year. So yeah, since he has a huge DC presence and he's in that Warner Brothers pipeline, I think they just kind of need to walk away from this guy at this point. So let's move away from DC and kind of jump into Marvel stuff here. Marvel Studios kind of just did like a shadow drop for for Thor. They dropped the teaser trailer for Thor: Love and Thunder, and put out the release date of July 8th. What'd you guys think of the trailer?
For a teaser trailer, I liked it.
Yeah.
Had some laughs in it.
Chelsea, you seem to have a different opinion.
Yeah, sorry. It just looked like a hot mess to me. I'm just like, it looked bad. And I had high expectations for it. I was hoping it was just going to be like a fun ride, just laughs and everything, which who knows, maybe the movie is, but that trailer gave me the opposite impression.
I mean, there was like zero context in every single scene that we saw. I think it was just a lot of stuff like pasted together, So I'll wait for like the first actual trailer.
My concern that when I saw it is I have less worry about storyline, besides the fact that it's just another Thor trying to find himself adventure, which is just like, how many fucking times does Thor need to find himself before you actually settle?
Well, the last directors, they murdered all of Thor's people.
Well, it's the same director as the last one, so...
No, not Thor. I mean Endgame. In Infinity War.
Yeah.
They killed all of his people. So, he's got to find something now. I mean, it'd be kind of weird if he just said, "Hi, everybody," and then pretended like none of that traumatic crap ever happened to him. So
yeah, I feel like a lot of that was also kind of talked about in Endgame. But anyways, my concern isn't
about Thanos.
My concern isn't storyline. My concern is just that film just from a look standpoint does not look good. I don't know how early it is. A lot of times studios like a Marvel and like bigger, they don't put out footage that's unfinished. But just the look of it, just Ragnarok had a style to it that was kind of different for its time, but it didn't bother me. Love and Thunder has a look to it that just looks so fucking cheese and overtly 80s aesthetics that I'm so fucking over it. It looks not good at all. Like, the poster even looks awful. So that's like that was my concern, is like I watched it and just like I really like Taika Waititi as a director. He's done really good stuff in film and in TV. I mean, he does stuff for Star Wars. He's directed like Mandalorian episodes, and like I just really like his like touch. I think he's kind of going the wrong direction, in my opinion, for Love and Thunder, and I think he's leaning a little too hard in the like the goofiness, and I'm afraid he's gonna leave what I actually liked about Ragnarok kind of behind. So I don't know. Like I said, teaser trailers for Marvel are usually bad. At least they have been for the last few years. I don't think I've seen a teaser trailer for any of their major releases that I was like, oh wow, this looks good. Most of them are pretty shit. So I want to reserve judgment, but if I'm being honest, it does lessen my already tempered excitement for it. So, but yeah, like Wade was saying, we have no idea contextually what the film's actually about, what he's doing. We haven't seen anything with Christian Bale and as Gore the God Butcher. Like, there's a potential this film still has like a pretty like interesting storyline and some darker corners that it touches on.
I mean, if it stays even close to kind of true about the God Butcher story,
yeah, this
is gonna get gross.
Yeah. So.
Because I mean, it's interesting. I mean, they did show that they're like in Olympia.
Yeah.
And
which
he
is also like
all of them. So
which that like little like flash was like one of the worst looking things. It was like that shot of Olympia. I'm like, Jesus Christ. And like you could definitely tell like Russell Crowe was like catching like what looked like a plastic thunderbolt. And I'm just like, Jesus Christ, this looks so fucking dumb. But anyways, like I said, gotta reserve expectations with that stuff. But I don't think it was a good first showing. YouTube would say otherwise. It had like the second or third largest viewer count in like a 24-hour period or something like that. So obviously people are excited about it. And I hope it's good. I want it to be good, but I didn't like that trailer at all. I watched it once and I was like, nah, I never want to see this again. So, some other Marvel stuff, not necessarily MCU, but I guess Sony Marvel stuff. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse release dates. Part 1 is June 2nd, 2023. Part 2 is March 29th, 2024.
Very sad.
They also announced...
Yeah, they pushed it back.
Yeah, those were delayed. Those were delayed a year. They also announced some casting for the Madam Spider film that they're doing. Dakota Johnson, right?
Yeah.
She's playing. Yeah. She's like the lead, and then they also announced Sydney Sweeney, I think, is in it. She just got cast in it. She's from Euphoria, if you don't know. But anyways, I don't know anything about Madam Spider or any of that shit. But it just shows that like Sony is like doubling down on their Spider-Verse and trying to like flesh it out and make all these different films and whatnot. So
I don't understand Sony. I want to.
Yeah.
But I don't, because why Madam Web? Why?
Yeah, Madam Web.
Why
I said
not?
Madam Spider, whatever. I don't know.
Just her first iteration is an old blind lady who can see well, the future, but then expands into like the multiverse because spider totems. And then she dies, and Julia Carpenter, I think her name is, takes over, so she can like kind of do the same thing, but she's like a young woman, so she can like kind of kick butt. Except she's also blind now. Because that's
man,
like,
I don't know.
I just why do they hate the fans of Spider-Man? Why does Sony hate everything?
Out of all of Sony's divisions, I think their film division has like the loosest understanding of their community.
Like
there was Into the Spider-Verse,
except for Into the Spider-Verse, that can stay forever. That's fine. They can make 100 of those. That's fine.
And I think that was more just Phil Lord and Chris Miller or whatever doing a good job over like Sony really understanding.
Oh yeah,
the animation.
That was. Yeah. Well, you bet they're gonna meddle now, though. Now that it made $1 bajillion.
Yeah,
but like sure. they did release, like there was like set photos of Kraven.
Yeah, which I still don't like that casting, but that's whatever.
Now that I like saw him, I was like, he looks like Kraven. Like beforehand, I was like gross. But I saw like you see him like not like in the Kraven outfit because that probably won't be a thing for a long time. But you just kind of see him physically as Kraven, and I was like, I can see it.
Every time I see that actor, I just think Kick-Ass, and I'm just like, I can't imagine this guy being Kraven. So it's so weird to me.
And like just all of these Spider-Man villain movies
that are
without Spider-Man, I don't know. I don't know what do they want? What do they want out of this? Like, even the people they're choosing, it's like, these characters that you're choosing, like, do you think they're going to get you $1 million? Do you think Madam Web is going to make more than $75 at the box office? You're dumb. Like, they could have made a Spider-Gwen live-action movie, which I would probably honestly feel the same way about. But at the very least, like, it would have like legs, from the Spider-Verse movie. People would be like, "Oh my God, Spider-Verse! Spider-Gwen! I want to see that."
Yeah.
But like even people who read the comics are like, "Wait, who's Madam Web?"
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, man. None of that stuff interests me. I like Into the Spider-Verse, and I'll watch Across the Spider-Verse, but like all that other Spider-Man shit, like and all that Venom movies and Morbius and like. I can tell from a mile away those movies are fucking bad even before they come out. So I just like
I like the Venom movies.
Like
I did like the Venom ones, but because Venom can like be a character on his own.
Yeah.
But like these other villains, these other people, it's like no.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, that's Sony's superhero slate they got going on. I guess back to Warner Brothers. They announced that they want to do a live action Minecraft film, and they want Jason Momoa to star, rumored to play Steve. If you're familiar with Minecraft lore.
What kind of dirt do they have on him?
I don't know.
To control him the way they do.
The fact that the film is also supposed to be, I think, directed or written by Jared Hess, who did Napoleon Dynamite. Like, literally nothing about that sentence sounds appealing to me. I don't play Minecraft. I have no fascination with it whatsoever. So a live action film, I don't give a shit about. It sounds like it seems like everyone's just trying to find a gaming IP and trying to turn it into either a TV show or a film now more than ever. It's getting ridiculous. You got the Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, out there talking about how it's rumored that he's going to be in a live action Call of Duty movie, and then you got Streets of Rage live action film was announced.
Streets of Rage.
From the script is going to be handled from the writer of John Wick. You know, Sony's trying to do these first party game, like they're doing Ghost of Tsushima, which is directed by the John Wick director. They just announced the writer. There's talks of a God of War TV show that I don't know if it got greenlit, but it was announced. You know, you got Amazon doing Mass Effect and Fallout. It's fucking crazy, like all these gaming properties that are trying to make the switch to film or television. And it also, I keep seeing everyone talk about how Uncharted is like making like buku money, especially overseas. Because I just cannot imagine that film being good at all. But all it's going to do is just encourage these studios to be like, hey, well, we can make a shit ton of money even if the movie's like mediocre, just because people know these characters or this IP. So I think it's only gonna get worse. I don't care about any of these things. Like, I don't need my games to be films or whatever. Like the Halo TV show. I love Halo. I'm like huge, like a Halo super fan. That TV show looks fucking terrible. I did like a Paramount Plus. I got like a free trial for like a month from my Xbox rewards or whatever, or being a Game Pass member or some shit. Anyways, I watched like the first episode and I was... Have you guys ever seen that live action movie Doom with The Rock and Carl Urban from like the early aughts? It's kind of like that. It, no. Like they do these like first person views where you're like in Master Chief's visor.
Oh, gross.
And it shows him like doing first person like shooting and stuff, and the acting's fucking terrible. And Master Chief never wears his fucking helmet. Like the actor's just walking around with his head out all the time. And if you know anything about Halo, the game's been around for 20 years and no one's seen that dude's face. But apparently the TV show, like that's all you fucking see.
In the book, in the book, he like doesn't hide his face though. So
yeah, but it's like bad. Yeah, but it's just so fucking weird. You know what I mean? Like it's just like, I don't know. And I get it. They're not trying to adapt the games. They're not even really adapting the books. They're doing their own timeline. It's just, it looks cheap. The acting's bad. The writing's terrible. The music's terrible. It's not even like the score. It's like a bastardized version of the Halo music. It's just... It looks like all the fan films they've been making on YouTube for like 10 years. Like it just looks like another one of those. So... And it's actually... apparently performing really well. So if that's like the bar for a lot of these gaming shows and movies, like count me out. Not interested. So yeah. Speaking of streaming services, Netflix just came out and said that they have lost 200,000 subscribers in the last quarter. Their first reported loss in over a decade. They also said they're projected to lose roughly 2 million more by the end of next quarter. Their stock price fucking dropped harsh at the end of closing on Friday or the Friday before. I can't remember exactly. So they're in some come to Jesus right now internally on what they want to do. There's been reports out there that are considering kind of stopping down on the password sharing. It was reported that roughly 33% of Netflix accounts share passwords with multiple households. So that's a fairly decent amount of your subscriber base that's potentially sharing passwords, to 2, 3, 4, 5 other households. They've also talked about instituting a low-cost tier that would have ads. And they also came out Thursday or Friday and said that they are halting and canceling any further productions on anything animated. So... First off, do you guys have Netflix subscriptions, or do you have, like, or are you sharing, like, you have someone else's subscription? You know what I mean?
No, we have our own, and we've had our own for
Yeah.
bajillion years.
I have an Apple. Yeah, I have a subscription.
All right. So, where would you guys put Netflix on like a ranking of like the major streaming services? Like, is it like top tier for you guys? Like, I gotta have this service. Is it has it been? Could you do without it? Like, where are you guys at as subscribers?
I mean, between Netflix and Hulu, like, we're pretty 50-50.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chelsea, what about you?
Yeah, it's kind of near the top for me, but it really depends. Like I kind of go through waves of, watching stuff on one streaming service, then moving to the next one. But it is one I would still prefer to keep for a while.
What's the main draw for either of you guys for Netflix? Is it their original content? Is it just the huge catalog of stuff that's from third parties? Is it the binge model? They're one of the only main streaming service that will drop when their shows come out. It's all at once. What do you guys actually like about Netflix?
I mean, I do like the binge model, but there are definitely some gems on Netflix that's their original content, whether it be their films, not quite as much for me, but they definitely have some good TV shows at times, especially if they haven't canceled them and I get to watch the complete one. That's great. And then also every once in a while, like they'll have a movie that I've been wanting to watch for a while, like, and it's only available on their service. Then I'll check it out.
Yeah. Wade, is that about the same for you? Just kind of.
Yeah. This just it's just got shows that I like to like watch and rewatch and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What?
I don't really like ever go click on anything random really that much.
You don't do the surprise me or whatever it is now, where it's just like a
Absolutely not.
Start some
Absolutely
random, thing for me.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, I've never once clicked on that. I would be afraid of what would actually just randomly play.
No, thank you.
So we have Netflix. We have Netflix in this house, and I would say 90% of the stuff we watch is in the kids. For my son, he watches shit like Cocomelon and The Wiggles and and all that stuff. I don't think there's anything that Netflix has that's original to them that for me is I must have this service so I can, they don't have like that killer show that I have to like continue to watch. You know what I mean? Like I have to have this service to watch this particular show. Now, I do like the fact that they'll just randomly dump like 30 movies and I'm like, oh wow, it came out a couple years ago, I didn't get to see it in theaters, now I get to watch it. Like that's kind of what I like about Netflix is just like, I won't watch it for a couple months and then I'll turn it on and I'm like, holy shit, there's like a bunch of stuff on here that but it always turns into like I just throw it on my watch list and then it just sits there. Like I never actually watch any of it.
I do that sometimes for sure.
That's fair.
I for one, especially where I'm at now in my life, I don't binge watch anything. No, I just don't have the time for it. And I also think that the binge model hurts them in a way, because I think, for me personally, I think when a show, if you got like a killer show, like I think Disney Plus does a really good job with their content release. With their Marvel shows and their Star Wars shows and a lot of their like big like productions, they put a lot of marketing into them. They make them like these like events, like this is coming, like it's gonna drop next week, and then you get the first episode. Everyone watches it. Everyone talks about it on social media all week in anticipation for the next episode, and then you create this bubble of everyone who's kind of enjoying it at the same time and talking about it. It kind of creates this like micro zeitgeist for these shows. The binge model, you will have these people that will, the show will drop and they'll watch that whole shit that night, and then you have someone else who watches one episode, and it's not really conducive for conversation because all the fans are at different points in watching it. You know what I mean? And it kind of makes it creates these these different lanes for people to talk about these shows. And I think if they kind of got rid of the binge model and, you know, did something with like one of their big tentpole releases like Stranger Things or Bridgerton or The Crown or whatever, and just did episode at a time, it keeps the conversation going longer, and it keeps that show relevance longer. You know what I mean? If that show is relevant for 6, 8, 10 weeks because everyone's waiting for that next episode, you're also keeping those subscribers longer. If you do the binge model, I can subscribe to Netflix for that month, binge the show, and then duck out and then not come back until the new season. You know what I mean? And I think that's part of the reason why none of the other major services do the binge model, because they like the idea of keeping people coming back and keeping that conversation going for as long as they can, if that makes sense.
Well, this could help too. Like, this could have something to do with it. Netflix doesn't have as much competition as you think they do. There are tons of other streamings, you know, whatevers, but a vast majority of them are only in America.
Yeah.
Like, most other countries have Netflix, and that's it. Now everything that you find on every single other streaming thing is on their version of Netflix.
Yeah.
Like, Netflix is like the one stop for literally everything in most other countries. And so not to say that America isn't like a percentage of, you know, the Netflix's viewership, but, you know, but I do agree with what you're saying about the binge kind of thing. But they could see it as like, well, people still have to get us anyway. So
even in terms of like revenue, like no one's even close to Netflix. But the fact that everyone else is seeing growth and Netflix is the only one that's not, that's a red flag. Like, that's an issue.
Also, because they keep canceling all their goddamn shows.
And see, that's the other thing that I think Netflix has an issue with is, on one hand, it's great that they pretty much will greenlight anything, because it keeps a lot of these writers and people, you know, keeps the lights on for them and gives them a chance to share their vision for whatever. But then Netflix also has these expectations for all this stuff, and it's pretty much just like a blanket across the table, you know. And if a show doesn't hit that within the first couple weeks of a release, it's canceled, regardless of critical appeal or fans or ratings or whatever. You know, they could do like a Netflix original film that is up for like 10 Oscars, but it only saw like viewership in like 5 million households. Like, that's not a win for them. You know, they don't care about the accolades. Like, they want as many eyes on something as possible. And I think they are oversaturating their own service because they're just constantly greenlighting too much shit. And nothing really feels special. You know, all these other services like your Apple and HBO and Disney, since they don't have the big catalog, when they do have a new show, it's like a big deal. You know, and they put a lot of marketing into that. And everyone watches it and talks about it, and then, you know, they wait for the next big thing. With Netflix, it's just like since it is also a global service, it's just scattershot shit just flying on there with no acknowledgement. You know what I mean? And then, like, you'll see something like, oh, cool, I'll check this, and then you find out it was canceled. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, sometimes I think Netflix's biggest problem is they're more worried about quantity over quality. And I think that's like a core issue for them. You guys have anything else to add to that?
I don't know. I mean, but it does work sometimes for Netflix, because they do have their, like, if there are those mini series or something like that, like, even though they, you know, release it all at once and a lot of people binge watch it, it can still be talked about for weeks and months on end. Like, look at Tiger King.
Oh, God,
People talked about that forever.
Yeah.
And just like even stuff that's recently happened, and it's like
there
is buzz behind it. It's just it's different because it's not like they really heavily advertise a lot of those things before. I get that, and it's after.
My thing with stuff like that is those are like the exceptions and not the rule. You know what I mean? Like Netflix's big core design is they're playing like probabilities. Let's put out 100 shows and hope 10 of them hit. You know what I mean? Like instead of just putting out 10 really good shows, we'll just have as much shit on here as possible, and hopefully one of these things will work. And I don't like that method, and I don't think it works. I would rather you take 2, 3, 4 years and like really make it an awesome show, and maybe only release a couple movies or a couple shows a year, and they're all stellar, as opposed to just like, you know, vomiting a bunch of nonsense and then one of them is a diamond in the rough. Like, I don't know. I'll be curious to see what they're doing now. I don't think is going to help. I don't think canceling all your animated shit. Like, I think they see it as like, oh, well, animation costs way more than all this other stuff. It takes longer. Let's just put it on let's put it on the side right now and halt and kind of readdress it. But
it almost feels like a punishment.
Yeah, I don't agree with that.
You know,
I don't think that's a healthy way to handle this issue. Cracking down on password sharing, they were talking about how like they weren't going to stop it, but they were going to charge more for people who do it, kind of thing. Like it would be like a more expensive tier if you share your password or something like that. I'll be curious to see what they actually do with that, because they have tried eliminating password sharing in other countries, but they haven't really. No one's really talked about like if it's changed subscriber counts or for positive or negative. So yeah, I'm curious to see what happens with Netflix. You got something? You're gonna say something?
Yeah, I was just gonna add, because it's interesting that right around the time that they announced that they were going to shut down a lot of their stuff with animations, they also did announce new shows and stuff and like new movies. But like one of the movies that they announced, it was one made by another studio that they were just gonna choose Netflix as a platform to release it. So I mean, therefore they didn't really have anybody working on the animation, but it's interesting to also say, oh, we're doing this brand new show.
Yeah.
Like one of the new shows that they announced was The Exploding Kittens, which is based off the card game, and they were going to make a mobile game or something to go along with it.
Yeah, I'm also curious if it's one of these things where it's like, hey, we're not going to greenlight any new projects, but anything that's already in production we'll let you finish. Because I mean, they have already come out and said that they're doing a season 2 for the Cuphead show, and they announced that Volume 3 of Love, Death, and Robots is coming out, I want to say this year or early next. So there's definitely still animated stuff coming. I think it's more just like, hey, we're not starting anything new. So, like I said, we'll see what happens with all that stuff. Kind of another service, the Funimation Crunchyroll merger. I guess we could have talked about that when we were talking about other acquisitions. That's kind of like a big deal for any like anime fans. Those two kind of just, it's still going to be the Crunchyroll banner, and so yeah, basically any shows that were licensed under Funimation are now going to be under Crunchyroll. So if you have a Crunchyroll subscription, you basically just get a whole new drop of great content. So that's cool if you have that. I don't have it. I don't watch enough anime to justify it, but it's something I enjoy watching. It's just I don't watch enough of it. So there's a couple more things that I wanted to talk about that is kind of back into gaming. We didn't touch on, just kind of some quick headlines here. E3 this year is canceled.
Bye E3.
The ESA announced that they are not doing, they haven't done a in-person show in I guess 2 years, and then now they said they're not even doing a digital show. They said that they do have plans to return in 2023, but I am skeptical. Most of what E3 was them selling booth space to these big companies like your PlayStations and your Xboxes and Square and Nintendo and stuff like that. And since none of those guys even do E3 anymore, and no one does booth space anymore and hasn't for years, it's I don't really see a future for E3, even as a digital event, because all these companies can just do their own directs or state of plays or what have you. So I honestly think E3 is dead for good, which is kind of weird. It's kind of an end of an era. As a gamer, I always looked forward to E3. It's kind of like it was gaming Christmas. Basically just like a week-long event of all these new announcements and demos and all this other stuff, and it was really cool. But it hasn't really been the same for a few years now. And there's still going to be events. These big companies are still going to do these like digital streams, and you got Jeff Keighley's Summer Games Fest, which I'm see what happens with that. So there's still going to be announcements. It's just not all going to be condensed into one avenue anymore. So sticking with gaming, Breath of the Wild 2 was delayed to 2023, which, shocker, I thought it was already coming out in 2023. So when they announced the delay, I was like, oh, okay.
All right.
Yeah, sure, whatever. They did a state of play focusing on Hogwarts Legacy.
Yeah, they did.
It was a pretty beefy extended look. It was like basically almost like 15 minutes of gameplay and kind of just talking about the core concepts in the game, the mechanics, what you're going to be doing, kind of the look, a little bit of the story. It's supposed to come. They announced it's supposed to come out holiday this year, which that's basically a window of late October to the end of December. So we'll kind of see where that lands. Yeah. Since it's a Warner Brothers production, and Warner Brothers already has a Gotham Knights coming out, I want to say in October, I bet they'd want to stagger their release for fiscal reasons. So you might see Hogwarts Legacy end of November, early December is my bet. You guys both watched the state of play. What was your takeaway from it? I don't know. I'm sure Chelsea's over the moon, excited. Did anything stand out to you guys?
It just looks great. Day one for me.
It just looked like there was so much in the game already.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll agree with that. It does look like it was more expansive than what I would have thought. I really like the look of it. I think it has a really nice style. I thought it was a lot prettier than I was also expecting. So it's a TBD for me. I'm not a huge Harry Potter nut, so I'll kind of just wait and maybe like a Deep Sale, or if it comes to one of these streaming platforms in a year or two, I'll check it out. But I hope it's good. It's the first major release for Portkeys, like Harry Potter Wizarding World kind of banner. So I hope it's a success so they can continue on making games in this universe. Because I would suspect that if it flops, that would probably be the end of Portkey outside of mobile space. So yeah. There was an announcement that Lucasfilm Games and Skydance New Media are doing a Star Wars game that is headed by Amy Hennig, which is interesting to me because Amy Hennig was also doing a Star Wars game for EA years ago. They got canned. It was codenamed Ragtag. So now she gets her a second shot to do a Star Wars game. Skydance is also the same company, and Amy Hennig is also doing the Marvel game. So she's gonna have her hands full with two huge properties. All that's known about the Star Wars game that it's gonna be a cinematic action adventure title. Which makes sense because if you don't know who Amy Hennig is, she was basically in charge of the Uncharted series. So She also has a film background, so that's kind of what she brings to the table. She doesn't come from gaming, she comes from film, so that's why her games have that kind of feel to it. So I'm excited. I love Star Wars. I like, I want to see more Star Wars games that are good. So,
yes. Yes. Agreed.
So yeah, the only other story here is kind of a dumb one, but I just want to touch on it. There was a lot of discourse after Elden Ring came out, mostly on social media, from other developers kind of criticizing Elden Ring's poor design, bad quest lines, ugly look, yada yada yada. These developers were also from Guerrilla Games and Ubisoft that also just launched big open world games either right before or Valhalla came out as a launch for the next generation, and Horizon Forbidden West literally came out like a couple weeks before. So I kind of feel bad for Guerrilla Games because when they launched Horizon, oh god, what was the first one? Zero Dawn. That's right. So it came out, and then literally like a couple weeks later, Breath of the Wild came out. So all the conversation shifted away from Horizon, and everyone was gushing over Breath of the Wild for the rest of the year. And then Guerrilla launches Horizon Forbidden West, and then like a couple weeks later, Elden Ring comes out, and all that conversation is sucked away and is put on Elden Ring. And I can see how these developers get irked by that. I think it was kind of in bad taste for them to come out and criticize not colleagues, but people in that same space. It kind of just came across as like, I guess, bad sportsmanship, essentially. Like, hey, we just launched a game that we think is better than yours, and I don't understand why yours is getting all the hubbub and the attention and the appeal. To me, they're two completely different games, besides the fact that they are quote-unquote open world. Wade, since you're the only other one on this podcast that's played Elden Ring, did you have any, like, was it just like, oh, this is just social media being itself kind of thing? Or
that's really what I got out of it. Like, yeah. I read both sides. I read like the 3 developers who were being salty, and then the thousands and thousands of Elden Ring people that were being their mostly awful selves. And I was like, you guys are made for each other. Good job. It's like, it's fine. Yeah. Like, developers, shut up. Like, they made the game the way they wanted it. Sorry you didn't like it. Elden Ring players, go play Elden Ring and leave everybody else alone.
Yeah, for me it was in bad taste, because usually in the gaming developer community, usually it's a very supportive one. People always come out and say, hey, congrats on the big launch. We love your game. Da, 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 da. You see a lot of more positivity in that community, and then it's the fans that have all this stupid outrage and these dumb rhetoric and battles and whatnot. So to see developers come out and kind of start it is just kind of like, ugh. It just makes you look bad. You know what I mean? It just paints a negative light on you, and you're representing a studio that's just going to get all this heat for no fucking reason. So that was kind of my take over it. But yeah, to me, they're not comparable games, so I don't know why they even got upset in the first place. So it's just don't get in your feelings, But yeah, I think there's a couple other stories here we can talk about, but they're not really, Elon Musk trying to buy Twitter. We'll see what happens with that. But yeah, I don't know. What do you guys think? I think we've pretty much covered all the big items from January on. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely a lot of highlights. Yeah, there's definitely plenty of things we missed. Lots of news, jam-packed episode. Yeah. I think that'll probably do it for this week's episode of our podcast. Thanks for everybody for listening to this week's episode. Be sure to like and subscribe wherever you listen to this podcast, and leave us a review. Preferably, that'd be cool if it was 5 stars. Also, share this podcast with a friend. That'd be cool too. And if you want, you can also follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at PodDemastered. And you can feel free to send us an email anytime at demasteredpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks again for listening to this week's episode, and we hope you tune in next week. See ya.
See you guys.